American comics. Villain superhero model. I don't talk about morality. Chapter 46. Otto stretched out his hand and shook it with Peter in a somewhat surprised look. Thank you, Punisher, thank you for saving my life. In the future, if you need help, I don't mind wearing the mechanical arm again and fighting for you. Peter pulled his hand away. His voice was cold and expressionless. The premise is that you don't turn into a monster. Besides, the person who saved you was not me. If you have to thank someone, thank Peter. Peter. Otto was slightly stunned, and then he thought of the young man. A very good young man. One day I will express my gratitude to him in person. I don't care. After saying this, the Punisher disappeared in the eyes of everyone. The reason why Peter put Otto next to the Penguin is that Otto now needs the protection of the Penguin. Second, let them monitor each other. Check and balance each other. Peter doesn't like things that are beyond his expectations. On the way home, the electronic sound of the system sounded in his ears. You have completed the mission and saved Otto Octavian. Dr. Octopus officially exits the stage of history. We look forward to the future Otto providing you with equal value in return. Reward 10,000 points. Your current points are 142,300. Total accumulated points are 152,300. You get an ability upgrade. Please choose one of the following 3 options, or give up the choice to get a special ability. Bulletproof head. The bulletproof effect after the upgrade will cover the whole body. Note: it only works on bullets. Bullets fired by any firearm cannot cause you any harm. Mind bullets. Original effect description. How many bullets you can fire with a pistol depends on how many guns you want to fire. After the upgrade, you can fire bullets without a pistol, but the firing interval is the same as that of a pistol, and the range is set to 50 meters. Strengthen your physique. After the upgrade, your bones are strengthened, your muscle density is strengthened, and you get a certain degree of self-recovery ability. The platelet ability is strengthened. Even if you are shot, you can recover as long as you get enough sleep. Peter looked at the options above, and his choice difficulty came back again. This time he was not struggling with what to choose, but whether to gamble on a special ability. Mind bullets and bulletproof heads were excluded at the first time. Now the points have accumulated to 150,000, and only 50,000 are needed to exchange for the Homelander template. At that time, he will be immune to bullets directly, so there is no need to choose the first 2. As for the latter one, it really makes Peter excited, but the Homelander template covers this ability. Forget it. Give up the choice and get a special ability. You get Night Raven times 50. Description: Night Raven is a flight bird with good night vision ability and fast speed. Release Night Ravens, they will share your vision. Note: Night Ravens are not aggressive, just a means of reconnaissance. The system prompt sound ended, and Peter had a thumb file-size tattoo on his wrist, which was a black crow. Peter pressed lightly, and a crow flapped its wings and flew out. At this moment, Peter seemed to be playing a game, with a ward inserted, and gained a broader perspective. It's better than nothing. If a Special Forces soldier had this ability, he would wake up laughing in his dreams. When Peter returned home, Gwen was lying on the bed doing homework. Since they got together, their learning efficiency has plummeted. They often sit together and chat secretly during class. The Dean of Studies also talked to the 2 of them. They are the 2 students who are most likely to be admitted to a top university this year. This is related to the reputation of Midtown Science and Technology High School. But in the exam at the end of last month, the 2's grades did not decline, and gradually the teacher didn't care. As soon as Peter entered the room, he threw himself on Gwen after changing his clothes. As his girlfriend, Gwen naturally didn't resist, and the 2 of them stayed in bed for a long time. Stop it, Peter, I have things to do. I just want to make trouble with you. The 2 were close, noses scratching each other, like 2 young children playing games. Peter, I have something to tell you. Gwen's tone suddenly became serious. The 2 of them sat cross-legged. Gwen looked a little unnatural. Peter, I'm telling you this, don't think too much about it, and don't be angry. What's so serious? Well, I've been going out on Saturdays in recent weeks. Actually, I went to learn fighting with a man. He's very good at fighting, and I want to learn a few moves from him. Gwen felt very guilty towards Peter for hiding this matter. She always felt that if she didn't explain this matter to Peter, she would be like a woman of no quality. Peter was slightly stunned. I didn't expect Gwen to tell him about this. It's okay, go ahead, I believe my girlfriend. After that, Peter gave Gwen a big hug. Gwen was relieved. With Peter's support, she no longer had to bear the psychological burden. She lay directly in Peter's arms. Baby, you're so nice. Hey, when did you become so exaggerated? Peter, you actually said I was exaggerated. Saturday afternoon at 3 o'clock. In an indoor gymnasium in Queens. A closed badminton court, Peter rents this venue for half a day every Saturday. For this reason, he even got a membership. There is no way, after all, he is training his girlfriend. Money is spent on outsiders. The golden hair on Gwen's forehead has been wet with sweat. Wearing a mask, she just feels uncomfortable breathing. Rest for a while. Ms. Spider, you are really weak, and your endurance needs to be strengthened. Peter, wearing a mask and combing his hair back, said expressionlessly. Then he secretly gave himself a dose of endurance enhancement potion with his backhand. There is no way, although there is the blessing of the bull spell. But the physical fitness is too poor. Fortunately, it won't be long before the Homelander template can be exchanged. Gwen looked at Peter unconvinced. Don't look down on me. After that, she stood up again. Gwen inherited her father George's tough style. If George had a weak character, he would not have been able to rise from an unknown detective to the position of the commissioner of the New York City Police Department. Gwen, influenced by her family environment, has a similarly strong character. Gwen punched Peter. Peter dodged it easily without the rabbit spell. He grabbed the opponent's arm with his backhand, and then pulled it. Gwen staggered and her body was unstable. Peter raised his knee and kicked Gwen's calf. The opponent instantly lost his support and fell to the ground. Too bad. Peter still had no expression on his face. Sorry, Gwen, a strict teacher produces a good student. At the same time, Osborne Company. As one of the largest companies in New York City, the company's stock price did fall a lot after Norman Osborn's accident, and there were also significant changes in personnel. But with the return of Harry Osborn, everything has stabilized. Harry, dressed in a suit, left his office and went to another biological laboratory. Back to the United States, back to New York. He had gone to his father and learned all the causes and processes. Since the day he knew that his family had a hereditary disease, he had never slept peacefully again. It seemed to be a psychological suggestion, and it seemed that he had also reached the stage of onset. Harry felt worse and worse. At the moment, he could only put all his hopes on one person. Dr. Connors. The glass sensor door opened automatically. Harry appeared in front of Dr. Connors, who had only one arm. Doctor, how is the current progress of the experiment? Connors took off his glasses and shook his head slowly. The experiment is more difficult than I expected. The genes of lizards are relatively stable, but this is a technical problem. And the most difficult point is from 0 to 1. I can invest hundreds of millions of R&D funds in this project. Harry frowned and said anxiously. Ever since his father, Norman Osborn, told him the truth. The gears of death have quietly turned. The sickle of the death god will harvest at any time. As a person who grew up in a wealthy family and surpassed most ordinary people since birth, Harry did not accept such an outcome. Dr. Connors, how can we speed up the experiment process? After all, using lizards for experiments is only level 1. Other animals will be needed for experiments later. Only if the experiment succeeds can I save my life. Dr. Connolly expressed deep regret for this. It can't be helped, Harry, it can't be helped. I hope the experiment will succeed sooner than anyone else. Suddenly he seemed to think of something. Peter. I know a high school student who is the same age as you, but very knowledgeable. Maybe he has a way. Harry was stunned. Peter Parker. Connors was slightly surprised. He gave Harry an inquiring look. Do you know Peter? Harry lowered his head and smiled. We went to school together for a few years when we were young, but then I went abroad and we didn't have much contact. At that time, we had the best relationship. Is he an expert in biology? Connors gave a negative answer. No, he is a high school student like you, and he still has 2 months to graduate. But I have communicated with him, and he has a unique insight into cross-species genes. Anyway, we have reached a bottleneck now. Why not adopt more opinions? Maybe the thinking can be opened up. Quote. Connors did not deny that he was desperate to try any possible means. After all, there was no other way. As he said, he should be the person in the world who most wanted this technology to succeed. After all, he spent a lot of time and energy on this research. After returning from the battlefield, he devoted himself to 15 years of research in the biological field. While others were busy enjoying cigarettes and fine wine, he was reading papers and reports in the library. While others were cuddling with their wives, he was dissecting mice in the laboratory. While others were accompanying their families, he had experienced countless failures. Connors always behaved very casually towards others, but that did not mean that he was not angry in his heart. He needed a success so much. In the initial stage of this research, the purpose was just to cure his disability. But at this moment, the desire for success has become his obsession. It just so happens that I haven't seen Peter for a long time. I wonder if he still remembers my old friend. Quote. Harry had a bitter smile on his face. Looking at the Osborne building in front of him, this is the business empire created by his father. If he died, the entire Osborne company would fall into the hands of others. He was unwilling. Very unwilling. Is it necessary to train yourself like this when practicing fighting? Gwen's two white long legs were on Peter's body. What is a girlfriend? A girlfriend can do anything to her and she will not be angry. Including but not limited to leg massage. The two of them were lying on the bed. Gwen was eating potato chips and watching TV while enjoying Peter's leg massage service. I couldn't help but sigh in my heart. Peter is still the best. Even without filters, Gwen has a good impression of Peter. Who can refuse a tall, good-looking, gentle, handsome guy? Just then, Peter's mobile phone screen lit up. Pick it up and take a look, and suddenly feel a little confused. What's wrong? Peter. Nothing. Do you still remember Dr. Connors? Definitely remember. Quote. What does he want to see you about? Peter shook his head. He didn't say anything specific, just that he wanted to meet tomorrow. Forget it, there's nothing to do tomorrow. Let's go see him then. Peter couldn't hold back his desire any longer. As a normal man, sitting next to a beautiful woman wearing hot pants, showing off her long white legs. Anyone would be thirsty. Gwen, I think we can give it a try. Ah. Gwen was stunned, but she quickly reacted. Her little face turned red at a speed visible to the naked eye. As a girl with normal development, she also has a boyfriend, and a very handsome boyfriend. She has thought about some things. But she is a little afraid. For her at this moment, fear is greater than expectation. What if she gets pregnant? Does she have to take classes and take care of the child at the same time? Wandering in the streets of New York in the future, do I have to set an alarm and breastfeed the child on time? Gwen is not ready for such a life. So, Gwen said apologetically. Peter, can you give me some time? It won't be long. I have to ask my mother some questions. Gwen, you're already 18. I know, but I'm not ready yet. Don't worry, it won't be long. Peter asked curiously. What are you going to tell your aunt? I'll just say Peter wants. Peter. Forget it, don't say it. Quote. Go to sleep. 853. The next morning, Gwen was still sleeping, and Peter had already taken a taxi to Osborne. Although it was unknown what Dr. Connors wanted to do specifically, it was not difficult to guess that his purpose was definitely related to biological experiments. Hello, Peter. Connors stretched out his left hand and shook hands with Peter, who had just entered the door. Hello, Dr. Conkas. Why did you ask me to come? He got straight to the point and asked directly. Connors asked Peter to sit down and brought him a cup of coffee. You know, I've been studying biological gene transfer engineering. Just like we discussed last time, using certain animal genes to replace human genes. Sure enough. Peter was right, Connors called him over for this matter. But this kind of thing is not his strong point, and he doesn't have any good suggestions. Instead, he wants to stop the other party from continuing the research. After all, in the movie, Connors turned into a lizard man because of this research. Hi, Peter. Suddenly a voice sounded behind Peter. He turned around and saw a familiar yet strange face. Harry was wearing a casual suit, blonde hair and blue eyes. He looked in good shape, but a little thin. Hairy. Both of them were a little surprised and lamented the changes that had taken place in each other over the years. At the same time, there were other feelings. In the past, the two were very good friends, but the time interval was too long. It seemed that they could no longer return to the intimate state before. To explain in the article of Lu Xuan, there was a sad barrier between them. Perhaps it was the guilt of sending Norman Osborn to prison. Peter spoke first. Harry, I didn't know you were back from abroad. Your father's matter. Don't mention him. Harry came up and hugged Peter. How long have we not seen each other? It seems to be nearly 10 years. Harry smiled slightly. Sorry, Peter, I haven't contacted you for so long. I went to your old house to find you. But you had moved by then. Peter couldn't help laughing out loud. I went to look for you, but you were abroad. Later, the security guard at the gate of your community would not let me in. Both of them couldn't help laughing. The atmosphere seemed quite harmonious, but Connors interrupted the joy of the two friends' long-awaited reunion. I really don't want to interrupt you, but we have important things to deal with. Connors looked at Peter. Do you have any suggestions? You can speak freely now. Harry patted Peter's shoulder and said to Connors. He has been a genius since he was a child. When he was in elementary school, others had to use computers to do those math problems, but Peter could get the answers by mental calculation. He will definitely help you. Peter didn't speak. Learn about the multiplication formula. Just then the system's voice sounded in my ears. You activate a new task. Unchangeable process. As a veteran who survived the battlefield, Connors has always wanted to heal his broken limbs. Years of hard work have made him more determined to achieve his goal. Therefore, injecting serum containing lizard genes is what he is destined to accomplish. Task description. Help Connors speed up the production of serum and try to make the experiment perfect. After all, no one wants tragedy to happen. Stop him if there is an accident in the experiment. Complete the task and get 20,000 points and a special reward. For this task, Peter has nothing to say. Connors is too persistent in this experiment. It is only a matter of time before 067 becomes a lizard man. The best way to stop him is to kill him. But you can't do that. It's like a person will become a heinous person who does all kinds of bad things in the future. At the moment there is another person who can predict his future. Then killing him now is equivalent to killing an innocent good person. If you don't kill him, this person will do all kinds of bad things in the future. Peter's principle is not to kill people who haven't done bad things, although the standard of bad things is set by him. Forget it, since it is a system task and you can get points, there is no reason not to do it. Dr. Octopus can be redeemed by him, and the lizard man also hopes that he can be redeemed. At worst, after saving the lizard man, we can also send him to the penguin. Anyway, for Gotham, the city of sin, one more monster doesn't make any difference. Drive Connors, how many biological gene transfer experiments have you conducted so far? Peter asked. Connors pushed his glasses. Countless times. I extracted the lizard's genes and put them into a mouse with a broken limb like me, but every experiment failed. No experimental mouse survived. His tone was full of disappointment, and then he sighed and said. The key to the problem every time appears in decay rate algorithm. Peter took over the other party's words. This shocked Connors. The reason why Peter came here was to hear if the other party had any unique ideas. But obviously, Peter was much better than he expected. One sentence pointed out the key to the failure of the experiment. A high school student could actually say the decay rate algorithm, which shocked Connors. This is no longer knowledge that a high school student can master. In a sense, Peter is indeed a genius. Harry nodded lightly on the side, but he didn't understand anything. Decay rate algorithm. When did high school teach this kind of thing? Peter walked to a table. Find a piece of paper, BFBE day pen. Write a formula instantly. It's not that he is so smart, but after he traveled through this world and confirmed his identity as Peter Parker, he thought he must be Spider-Man. So he has been very interested in biology since he was a child. He has been studying for more than 10 years, partly because of ability, but more because of hard work. Connors put down the coffee cup silently and walked to the front of the calendar park. The moment he saw the formula, he felt an electric current passing through his mind. It was the excitement of a person trapped in the desert and seeing an oasis. He looked at the formula carefully, and then his eyes were on Peter's face. A rare genius. Peter, how did you do it? Peter was afraid that he would be too high profile and hurt Conkus's self-esteem. So he pointed to his head. Formulas and the like are definitely thought out. Could it appear out of thin air? Harry Osborn also came over and asked. Dr. Conkus, is the company Peter wrote useful? Very useful. Connors gave a positive answer. Harry, Peter will definitely shine in the future, and he will definitely have extraordinary achievements. Connors did not hesitate to praise him. As a teacher, he was willing to see his juniors achieve greater glory. Peter, your talent is incredible. I have seen many outstanding people, but few are like you. In a sense, you have surpassed me. Harry was also very excited after hearing the news. It was not only the happiness of his childhood playmates' achievements, but also the gloating of his future destiny. Father, Norman Osborn, has been conducting research on biological gene transfer. The purpose is to cure the family's inherited diseases. Now this research has finally made progress. For Harry, this news was like a drowning man seeing a lifebuoy. As long as he grabs it, there is hope of survival. Without delay, several people immediately started research in the laboratory while they were excited. Connors fiddled with the instruments and explained. We have protein structure, ribosomal DNA, chromatography, and transgenic testing. He pointed to a huge amount of instruments. That is an X-ray imager, the only one in the world, and next to it is a human spectrum identifier, the Canary device. The principle is very simple. Load an antigen on it, and the reaction cloud it creates can cover the entire city. In theory, you can cure polio in the entire city in one afternoon. Peter had an impression of this thing. In the movie, Conkus, who turned into a lizard man, attempted to use this device to genetically modify the entire population of New York. He attempted to make everyone complete their evolution and become lizards. Connors continued to explain. Some people are opposed to its use. What if this machine is loaded with some toxic substances? Those things are chemical weapons. Powerful chemical weapons. In theory, it can save a city of people, but it can also kill a city of people. After a short pause, the three began to fiddle with the computer model. The 3D holographic model projected an image of a lizard. Now enter the equation. Connors operated the machine and typed a long string of code on the computer. On the 3D model display, a model of a mouse with 10 main legs appeared. Replace protein and eliminate immune response. The model immediately began to evolve according to the instructions. Demonstration. Demonstration. The equation was calculated successfully. The mouse with a broken leg in the image grew a new forelimb. Various data were displayed beside him. Life is stable, blood pressure is normal, and the broken limbs have been regenerated successfully. Connors had tears in his eyes. For many years, his experimental progress has been stuck at this step. There has been no progress. Now it has finally succeeded. The next step is the specific biological experiment. Peter left Osborn Company, and Harry wanted to send him off, but he refused. Just left Osborn Company. The voice of the system suddenly rang in my ears. Your cumulative favorability value has exceeded 10,000. And the sources include but are not limited to Gwen, Otto Octavian, Tony Stark, Harry Osborn, Kurt Connors. You have obtained an ability upgrade. Jack Chen's chewing gum, original skill description. I will definitely return it to you, a disposable consumable, chewing gum during combat, there is a certain chance to obtain an item from the enemy. Skill description after upgrade. I will definitely return it to you, a disposable consumable, chewing gum during combat. There is a 100% chance to obtain a skill from the enemy, and the usage period is permanent. Note: skills are acquired randomly and cannot be selected. Then if I fight with Superman, is it possible to get his Iron Man? No, I will be killed by him in one move. Peter laughed at himself. At the same time, on the other side of New York City, a tall man appeared in Stark Industries. He looks exactly like Tony Stark. His real identity is Dimitri, and people who have seen him call him Chameleon. He has a good fighting ability, and the most deadly thing is that he can imitate anyone. Whether it is voice, appearance, or even height, there is no flaw. A few years ago, he sneaked into the United States and came to New York to work under Kingpin. Recently, a Punisher suddenly appeared in New York, which ruined Kingpin's business. He received Kingpin's commission to investigate the true identity of the Punisher. From the information released publicly, only 2 people have had contact with the Punisher. One is Spider-Woman, who is also a superhero who has become famous in New York recently. But like the Punisher, she also wears a mask, and no one knows her identity, so there is no way to investigate. Another person who has contact with the Punisher is Tony Stark. This playboy admitted in public that it was the Punisher who rescued him from the terrorists' nest. So if you want to investigate the true identity of the Punisher, you must start with him. At this moment, Pepper in front of the chameleon was confused by the disguise and thought he was the real Tony Stark. Pepper, the Punisher saved my life. I think I should give back. After all, if it weren't for him, I might have died a long time ago. Pepper was a little helpless. You can't find him, and didn't you give that kid 100 million? It's a report. Chameleon was stunned. That kid. Peter. Quote. You are not drunk, are you? Pepper rolled her eyes at her former boss and current boyfriend. Honey, I have been in a state of confusion recently. Can you tell me Peter's address? I have to go there in person to thank him. Pepper felt very strange. She had never seen such a strange Tony. But she didn't think much about it, just regarded it as the sequelae of the battle between Tony and Ironmonger. So she told Chameleon where Peter lived. Unconsciously, she said, I am afraid that only that child in the world can find the Punisher. Hearing this, Chameleon immediately came up with a plan. Peter. Peter Parker. Just an ordinary person, he knows the whereabouts of the Punisher. Then as long as he threatens him and intimidates him, he can know the identity of the Punisher. Chameleon walked in front of Pepper. With a weird smile on his face. Sorry, honey, you should have a good sleep. Quote. After saying that, he immediately took out the spray in his hand and sprayed Pepper once, and she fainted. The chameleon used neurotoxins, a chemical drug that will not hurt people, but can make people fall asleep. Without hesitation, he immediately took a car to the villa community where Peter lived. He transformed into Tony Stark again. The strange thing is that many crows appeared in the whole community. It was really surprising that crows appeared in the city, but the chameleon ignored it. According to Pepper's instructions, he walked to the door of Peter's villa. Cleared his throat and knocked on the door. Peter, wearing pajamas, opened the door from the inside. Holding a piece of gum wrapper in his hand. The moment he saw him, his eyes suddenly lit up. Mr. Stark. Good evening, Peter. Quote. There are some things I want to talk to you about the Punisher. He saved my life, and I have to show my appreciation. Peter raised his lips and chewed the mask candy in his mouth vigorously. Come in, come in. The two sat on the sofa facing each other. I want to talk to you for a while, but my girlfriend will be back soon. FFLX. I'll just chat for a few words and then I'll leave. Chameleon said hurriedly. I want to ask, who is the real identity of the Punisher? Only when I know his information can I repay him better. Peter smiled slightly. The Punisher is me. Chameleon was stunned. Don't joke, Peter. I'm talking about something serious again. Peter's eyes were full of lightning. Who is kidding you? Uneasy emotions immediately surged into Chameleon's heart. The moment he saw Peter's eyes flashing with lightning, he understood something. This guy. He doesn't know the Punisher. He is the Punisher himself. Although Chameleon has the ability to change his appearance, his physical fitness is that of an ordinary person, and he is definitely not a match for Superman. At this moment, his hand is firmly on the sleeping potion. He pretends to be calm on his face. After all, he is now wearing the face of Tony Stark. Oh. My God. Peter, you are the Punisher. It's so shocking. Peter watched the other party's performance quietly. From the moment this guy appeared at the gate of the community, his whereabouts had been controlled by Peter through the Night Raven. With Tony Stark's personality, he would most likely fall from the sky in armor and casually pose in a handsome pose. At the very least, he would have to drive a luxury car over. And he would never tiptoe over the fence like this guy in front of him. Spider telepathy gave a warning as soon as this guy entered the door. Peter judged that the guy in front of him should be Chameleon. In the movie, this villain did not appear. But he does exist in the animation. Peter, I think we need to have a drink. Chameleon smiled and stood up, raised his hand suddenly, and sprayed the sleeping spray towards Peter. I didn't expect that the famous Punisher was actually a high school student. I will take you back. Kingpin will be very happy. Poison resistance +1. Peter, who has the ability to resist poison, was not affected at all before Chameleon took action. Spider telepathy did not give any hints, which means that the opponent's attack was ineffective. You seem to be happy a little too early. Peter grabbed Chameleon's neck and took him out of the villa and flew high into the sky. Chameleon was terrified and couldn't stop shaking. How could this be possible? The potion he used was specially formulated. Not to mention humans, even dinosaurs would fall asleep after taking a sip. And this guy in front of him was fine. This doesn't make sense. This is impossible. He couldn't stop shaking. No one knew the Punisher's methods better than him. He investigated the bodies that died at the hands of the Punisher. Everyone died in a very miserable way. Thinking of this, thinking that he might become such a body. Chameleon began to regret it. What on earth was he thinking? Why did he come here to investigate such a terrifying guy? As a former Bear agent, Chameleon has performed many tasks and faced danger for a long time, which made him have a calm heart. Peter, listen, Peter, I won't tell anyone about this. As long as you let me go, I promise. I'm also doing things for others, there's no need to risk my life. Give me a chance. It was Jin Bing who asked me to come here. I can be your spy, and I will pass on any news he has in the future to you. I'm useful to you. Peter chuckled. Jin Bing, I'll go find him, I don't need you. Quote. After saying this, lightning flashed in his eyes. The laser seemed to be about to be fired in the next second. The fear in the chameleon's heart was beyond description. Even in the sub-zero temperature at high altitude, he was sweating all over due to nervousness. At the same time, the disguise on his face was no longer under control, and the chameleon's face began to change into various appearances. Please, Peter. Let me go, I won't go against you. Please. A flash of lightning pierced through the night sky. The chameleon's head looked like a rotten persimmon. Peter threw it away. A red blood bubble immediately appeared on a remote road. This was the body of the chameleon. You have killed the chameleon and obtained its ability. You can disguise yourself as anyone. This ability has been upgraded. You can disguise the other person's voice, appearance, height, and other external features without external assistance. Peter returned home. Standing in front of the full-length mirror, he imagined what Gwen looked like in his mind. Blonde hair, blue eyes, 1.7 meters tall, and a rather plump figure. Peter's skin began to wriggle, and it took only a few moments. In the mirror in front of Peter, Gwen's image appeared. They were exactly the same, with no difference at all. It's time to give the Punisher a new identity. As Peter's strength increases, more and more people pay attention to the Punisher. There will be more troubles to deal with in the future. Maybe the Punisher has been targeted by S.H.I.E.L.D. or some other organization. Since the chameleon can find Peter Parker, it's possible that others can find this place. So Peter Parker must not have too deep a connection with the Punisher. For someone like Kingpin, if he knew Peter's true identity, he would inevitably threaten his family. Don't think that the Mafia and people who engage in violent activities are so good. They engage in violent activities and often do everything they can to achieve their goals. Peter looked in the mirror. He pinched himself a thin face, fierce eyes, white hair, and a face that looked like it was not easy to mess with. Herman Dante. As a bad namer, Peter could only split and reorganize the names of the games he played in his previous life. From now on, Herman Dante is the true identity of the Punisher. As for Peter Parker, he is just a genius high school student. Thinking of this, he went out immediately. Kingpin, right. Let's go talk to him now. In a luxurious manor in Manhattan, New York. Kingpin, wearing a white suit, sat at the head of an extended dining table. The table was full of candles, and the knife and fork were cutting the grilled steak. At the moment, the eyes of this gangster emperor looked a little more gentle. Opposite him were his wife and children. To be precise, it was a portrait of his wife and children. Boss, I brought his head. Suddenly, a henchman came in with a bleeding head in his hand. This man owed Jin Bing money. Jin Bing instantly rage. I said, not a drop of blood is allowed here. Jin Bing stood up angrily, walked directly to his younger brother, and stretched out his hand to embrace this guy. A crackling sound rang out. The younger brother's internal organs were all shattered, and even a few bones were broken. Jin Bing looked quite fat, as if he was a patient with 3 highs. But in fact, this huge amounts of body fat content is only 2%. His muscle density is extremely high. Even if a bullet hits his body, it is difficult to penetrate. The housekeeper hurriedly asked someone to clean up the blood in the room, and then left quickly. Jin Bing was left alone in the entire restaurant. He sat back in his seat, saw the photo of his deceased wife, sighed and said, "Sorry, Vanessa, I promise not to let you see any bloody scenes." Yes, she really can't see it, because she died a long time ago. Suddenly a cold voice sounded. Jin Bing was shocked. In fear, he stood up suddenly. He slapped the table and almost broke it. A strange man appeared in his sight. White hair, blue eyes, wearing a windbreaker, giving people a fierce temperament, as if he would draw a gun in the next second. He was Peter's disguised identity, German Dante. Who are you? Jin Bing is the underground emperor of the New York gang. Showing the proper reaction, he was panicked but did not show it. Who am I? Aren't you looking for me? Jin Bing was stunned. You are the Punisher. In the past 2 months, the crime rate in New York has reached the lowest level in history. It's all related to the man in front of him. This caused Jin Bing to lose a lot of money. Punisher, I'm looking for you, but I didn't expect you to take the initiative to appear in front of me. Aren't you afraid that I will kill you? Jin Bing sat back in his seat, with anger in his eyes that was difficult to hide. But at this moment, he didn't dare to act rashly. After all, he didn't have the ability to kill the Punisher, but the other party could kill him easily. In this regard, he could only pretend to be calm. German Dante showed a sneer at the corner of his mouth. He looked at the portrait of Jin Bing's deceased wife Vanessa and said, "If you want to kill me, you must have this ability." Quote. Even if you let 10 or 100 men with Gatling guns shoot at me at the same time, I can guarantee that they will be the ones who die in the end. Besides, haven't you killed enough people? I don't need to repeat why Vanessa died. Jin Bing's broad hands clenched into fists. Don't mention my wife in front of me. When Jin Bing killed someone before, he was caught by his wife and children. She couldn't believe that her husband, who was obviously an entrepreneur, was actually doing the heavy work of killing people behind the scenes. They fled in panic and were eventually hit and killed by a moving car. This is also the reason why Jin Bing asked people to study multi-universe. He missed his wife too much. Since Vanessa in this world is dead, then bring another one back from another world. Create a world with Vanessa. Wilson, what are you afraid of facing? Peter looked at him and said coldly. She died because of you, you should accept it. Imagine the bad things you have done in your life. On the surface, you look like a prosperous entrepreneur, but in fact you are the biggest villain in New York. Flour, guns, prostitutes, gambling. All controlled by you, maybe your wife is helping you atone in hell. Peter mercilessly revealed Kingpin's scars. Shut up. Peter's words pierced Kingpin's heart like nails. What is your purpose? Are you here to kill me? Peter stood up and walked directly in front of Kingpin. You sent Vulture and Chameleon to try to get them to deal with me. Kingpin was stunned. Cold sweat broke out on his back. You know everything. There is nothing I don't know. I hope this is the last time. Otherwise, next time we meet, I promise to tear off your head and put it in front of Vanessa's portrait. I won't kill you today. I just don't want the New York gangs to be in chaos without your rule. By then, those criminals will only become more unscrupulous. Definitely, if you annoy me again. I don't care about these things. Peter put a note in front of Kingpin. It's my name and a photo of me. I need an ID. I also need a house. You have to help me take care of these things. Kingpin was furious. He was full of anger, but the moment he saw German Dante's eyes, he suppressed it again. This man is really too powerful. So powerful that even the king of the underground in New York dare not offend him easily. But he still said with dissatisfaction. You killed my people and affected my business. Now you want me to get you a fake identity and a house. Who do you think I am? Peter walked up to Kingpin and looked him in the eye. Sorry, Wilson, I think you misunderstood me. I'm not discussing this with you. If you don't do what I gave you, then you have no value to me. A worthless person, a sinful person. I won't feel guilty killing you. Kingpin was obviously shocked by Peter's aura. He sat down again slowly and picked up the note on the table. Tomorrow you will get a new ID card and a 2-story house. If you need, I can even arrange 10 beauties for you in the house. For my sincerity, I hope you won't interfere with my business anymore. Peter smiled slightly. Then you have to keep a low profile. After that, Peter left Kingpin's house directly. It was not a pity for Peter that Kingpin was not killed. After his death, the underground criminal forces in New York will be unrestrained, and a large number of criminal activities will definitely occur in a short period of time. After Kingpin's death, it is very likely that Silver will appear. Instead of that, it is better to keep him and let him work for himself. A superhero may kill Kingpin. But Peter is not a superhero, he only works for himself. Your fear value has reached 10,000. Fear value comes from Vulture, Rhino, Chameleon, Green Goblin, Penguin, Dr. Octopus. You will get a random reward. You got the Chicken Talisman, permanent. Long-term task, collection of zodiac signs, I have everything I need 4/12. Peter was immediately happy. The Chicken Talisman was exactly what he lacked. For the past month, he has been relying on flight potions. And the points for redeeming this potion increase exponentially. The first time only required 50, then 100, then 200, 400, and 800. If the Chicken Talisman does not come again, he will be bankrupt. At noon the next day, Peter appeared as Herman Dante. Kingpin gave him a key and an ID. In the future, when facing those superheroes, he will appear as Herman. Thanks to Chameleon for giving him the ability to transform before he died. Gwen and Peter were curled up on the sofa on the weekend. Although George did not allow Gwen and Peter to live together, the passion of the young couple was something that he, an old father, could not stop. Gwen took a shower, dried her hair, and sat directly on Peter. I'm ready, Peter. What? That's it. We are boyfriend and girlfriend, it's okay. After saying that, Gwen unbuttoned her shirt. Peter immediately felt the blood rushing up. He could no longer hold it back. He started fighting directly on the sofa. Oh my God, Peter. It was obvious that even Spider-Man could not withstand such an attack. Gwen's body softened directly. It seemed that she had become a spider in the eyes of a gecko, and she would only be eaten in the battle. The sun was hanging in the sky at noon, and the battle ended only when it set. Gwen was red all over. Peter was also exhausted. After dinner in the evening, the two who had already had close contact were ready to do it again. But at this moment, the spider telepathy of the two sounded at the same time. Then there was the sound of car horns outside the community. Peter, I suddenly remembered that I have something to do and I have to go home. Gwen cursed in her heart. Why did it happen at this time? She felt that she didn't play well at noon, and thought about winning a game in the evening. As a result, something happened outside at this time. Although she didn't want to go, she wanted to stay here and continue playing poker with Peter. But as a superhero, she has the responsibility to deal with the chaos. The computer simulation experiment excited Connors's quiet heart. He immediately prepared the gene drug and injected it into the mice with broken limbs. The effect was better than he expected. The experiment was successful. The formula provided by Peter played a key role, at least it was a major breakthrough in the experiment. Normally, human experiments can only be carried out after a period of time after biological experiments. After all, there are still many risks. The mice in the experiment also need to be observed. This includes the DNA sequence of integrate between different species, and biological stability. After many studies and calculations, Conkas could not find any abnormalities at all. So the serum with lizard genes was injected in advance. He has been waiting for this day for more than 20 years, but it does not mean that he can wait another hour. Anyway, this experiment still needs human bodies, so let him be the first experimental subject. After injecting the lizard serum, Connors fell into a coma. His consciousness gradually blurred, and when he woke up again, he found that his right hand, which had long been away from him, appeared on his body again. He could clearly perceive the existence of each finger. Huge amounts of joy made him cry uncontrollably. The arm that had disappeared for many years actually grew back. With this point, he could win this year's Nobel Prize. It can make more disabled people perfect. Look at this arm, how perfect and beautiful it is. However, before Connors had more time to appreciate the arm, he felt hungry. Energy cannot be generated out of thin air. Now that a new arm has grown, it must consume a lot of energy in the body. Knurson ran to the refrigerator and devoured everything he could eat. Bread, hamburgers, and milk. Where is the meat? Why is there no meat? Connors roared, feeling endless anger accumulated in his heart. He punched hard, 3, 6, 7, and smashed the refrigerator to pieces. The light on the desk reflected Connors' shadow at this moment. His body became extremely strong and tall, just like a monster. There was a huge amount of tail behind him. As if it could destroy everything. At this moment, Connors had completely lost his wits and turned into a complete monster. His glasses were blown up by his enlarged head. The human head turned into a lizard head. The palms turned into sharp claws. At this moment, the gentle Dr. Conkas completely turned into a terrifying lizard man. The nature of animals was playing tricks in his body. He jumped from the Osborne Company building. Poor Osborne Company, after Norman Osborn became Green Goblin, once again ushered in a stock crash. The lizard man caused a huge sensation on the road, and the New York police immediately sent police to arrest him, but the bullets could not cause any harm to this guy. Even if it caused harm, the characteristics of the lizard would allow him to recover and heal in a very short time. The lizard man fled all the way, jumping a ridiculous distance. Running all the way to the gate of Peter's community. Disturbing the sweet world of Gwen and Peter. Hungry. So hungry. The lizard man who lost Connors' mind completely exposed his brutal side. He grabbed a passerby, opened his mouth wide, and was about to eat the other's head. Hey, big guy. Eating people is wrong. Gwen, who had changed into combat clothes, appeared in time, and cobweb tightly blocked the mouth of the lizard man. Saving the innocent passerby also attracted all the hatred of this big monster. Gwen originally planned to fight the lizard man in close combat. But at noon today, she broke something very important. She even bled. Even though she has a Superman-like body, there are certain physiological things that must be followed. To be honest, her legs are weak now, and she staggers when she walks. Even a little angry. But obviously, compared to her being disturbed, the lizard man was more angry. This green monster burst out with amazing jumping ability, flew directly, and bit Gwen repeatedly. Gwen dodged immediately. It is obvious that lizards have more powerful strength than spiders. The deadly claws and teeth can easily split Gwen in half. Don't let him touch it. Gwen flew in the air, used cobweb to stick a fire hydrant, and swung it hard on the lizard man's head. This move obviously slowed down the lizard man and caused him damage, but not much. The lizard man swung his tail with huge amounts of power and hit Gwen directly. If it were an ordinary person, this attack would be enough to cause internal injuries to people, the kind that would break their internal organs. Gwen was not feeling well either. She was whipped and flew far away. The lizard man jumped up and followed closely, opening his ferocious mouth and biting Gwen's head off. Gwen reacted quickly, holding the opponent's jaw with both hands. Ugly thing, how long have you not brushed your teeth? The two of them were in a stalemate, but Gwen was obviously the one who lost. Compared to the lizard, the spider is slower. Peter, who had been watching for a long time, finally took action. He was suspended in the air with the cold and fierce face of German Dante. The lightning shot out of his eyes and hit the back of the lizard man. It didn't penetrate, but it made the lizard man extremely painful, like a steel needle piercing the softest part. The lizard man roared and turned around suddenly, trying to solve the bigger trouble behind him. But it was obviously a wrong idea. Peter can fly. The electric eyes continued to output constantly. After almost consuming the lizard man, Peter fell from the sky with his fist facing down and punched the lizard man. The huge amounts of power made the opponent fly out, and he hit the wall hard, smashing the wall behind him. The lizard man suffered huge amounts of damage, but he could quickly repair his injuries. Peter stood in front of him and waited for him. He punched him when he pounced, and punched him when he pounced. Peter, who had the power enhancement of the bull spell, was least afraid of fighting these monsters. The huge amounts of impact force beat the lizard man beyond recognition. Since this monster has lost its mind, Peter doesn't mind using the most primitive way to make the lizard man recall the instinct of living things. Fear. Thanks to the movie I watched in my previous life. The purple potato spirit fights the Hulk. The invincible Hulk was directly beaten into autism, shrinking in his body and not daring to come out. The same is true for the lizard man. Every time he is beaten by Peter, Connor's sanity will be restored a little. If it weren't for the effect of the lizard serum, the lizard man would even want to retreat directly into Concas's body. The current situation is not a fight between the two sides, but a one-sided bullying. Who can withstand such an attack? As Connor's reason prevailed, he quickly said, "Quick, Punisher. Keep hitting me. I can feel that the monster is scared." With Peter's character, he might stop and then comfort him. But he is now German Dante. Since you are looking for a fight, I will naturally not refuse. Every punch hit the lizard man hard. Until Connor's reason returned, he could no longer bear it and cried out in pain. Don't, Punisher, I'm back to my senses. It seems that Peter's fist not only caused the lizard man to have primitive fear, but also had an effect on Connerson. Peter said in the cold voice of German Dante. Connerson, I will give you two choices now. First, die. I want to hear the second one. Connerson, who gradually regained his human form, panted and leaned against the ruins. Second, go to Gotham and continue your research. From your performance today, the lizard serum can heal people. At least the direction is right. But the serum needs to be improved. Next you will be arrested by the New York police, and then Osborn will rescue you. Although you have caused significant property damage, fortunately no one was injured. After saying this, Peter flew away. What happened next was almost the same as Peter expected. Connors was arrested by the police, and Harry Osborn bailed him out. After all, for Harry, this is genetic modification. The only hope for survival. Although Connors injected the drug and turned into a lizard man, the direction is right. On the night when the lizard man was in chaos, Gwen and Peter fought again. As two people with strengthened bodies, there are more postures than ordinary people. Because of the whole night of fighting, both of them asked for leave from school the next day. A few days later, Osborn Company. Harry Osborn stopped Connors who was about to leave. Drive Connors, I don't understand, why are you leaving? The experiment has been successful. Why do you want to leave at this time? Connors sighed. Harry, you are wrong, the experiment did not succeed. Quote. We all know what happened that day. My arm did recover briefly because of the lizard serum, but it is obvious that the harm is greater. I know that feeling, watching another self controlling the body, but unable to do anything. Compared to becoming disabled, I don't want to become a monster. Harry hurried to Connors. He said sincerely. Doctor, even if the experiment failed, our direction is correct. Osborn can provide you with strong financial support, and you can continue your research. This time, make some changes, only keep the arm, and don't turn into a monster. Develop in this direction. It will definitely succeed. Connors smiled bitterly. Harry, this is impossible, at least not now. I conducted a new experiment, this time locking myself in a tempered glass hand that is fully enclosed on all sides. After re-injecting the serum, although there was no loss of reason, but it still turned into a monster. After speaking, Connors patted Harry on the shoulder, shook his head and left. But Connors did not intend to give up this research. He would continue this work for the rest of his time. But he could not continue to stay at Osborn. This would bring trouble to Harry. The stock price of Osborn had almost hit the bottom because of the lizard man incident. Connors was too embarrassed to stay any longer. I heard that there was a rich man in Gotham, and maybe he could seek his funding. In the blink of an eye, the autumn in New York was completely over. The first snow fell quietly. Peter and Gwen walked on the streets of New York in thick coats. Peter, who cut your hair? I should go find that barber. Gwen was obviously not satisfied with Peter's new hairstyle. Peter shrugged his shoulders. Haircut is gambling, and he lost this time. Fortunately, he is very good looking and can handle any hairstyle. Would you like to come to my house tonight to celebrate your admission to college? My mother made lemon sea bass. During this period, the two of them took the exam and successfully entered the Imperial University. And they have been studying in the university for a while. Fortunately, the Imperial University is also in New York. Although it is far from Peter's residence, Peter is not short of money now. He rented a two-story independent apartment near the school. Otherwise, he and Gwen would live in the dormitory. They can only go to the hotel to enjoy their married life on weekends. Peter and Gwen have always had a good relationship, and since something beyond friendship happened, they have been inseparable. However, the school is on vacation during this period, and Gwen wants to go home for a few days. Peter shook his head helplessly. Not today, I have to go to Stark Industries later, Mr. Stark wants to see me. Although I don't want to go, who is the one who provided the villa we live in now? Gwen nodded. It seems that my boyfriend is very valued by this Iron Man. The two kissed for a while on the street. If it weren't for something happening later. Then it is estimated that in an hour, the floor of the house would be full of scattered clothes of the two. Then Peter, I'll go back first. Peter sent Gwen to the car, and he also rushed to Stark Industries. He did want to see Tony, but not as Peter Parker, but as German Dante. Yesterday, Tony found Peter, the purpose was to meet the Punisher. Although Peter didn't know what his purpose was. But he still agreed. After all, he also had something to remind this playboy. For example, according to the plot of the movie. At the moment, Tony should be deeply affected by palladium poison. He made a reactor with palladium under the hands of terrorists, and it was this thing that saved his life. Now this thing is waiting to kill him. But there is no way, the reactor using palladium will kill him. If he doesn't use it, he will die immediately. Peter appeared in Stark Industries as Gehrman. Under the guidance of the front desk, he walked into Pepper's office. Now the whole company is under her control, and Tony handed over the highest authority to her. Punisher. Pepper was shocked when she saw the white-haired Gehrman Dante. In recent months, Peter no longer wears a mask, but shows himself as Gehrman. It is not surprising that Pepper can recognize him. Good afternoon, Miss Pepper. Tony found me through Peter. I hope he has something important. My time is precious. Facing this cruel criminal killer. Pepper was obviously a little overwhelmed. Tech. I'll go find Tony now. Miss Pepper obviously didn't want to stay with a killer like Herman, which made her feel very stressed. Soon, Tony in a suit appeared. Behind him was a lady with brown-red hair, a rather plump figure, and a secretary's uniform. She looked like Tony's helper. But Peter knew her true identity. Natasha Romanoff belonged to S.H.I.E.L.D. Codename Black Widow, a beautiful agent who knows 6 languages. The reason why she was with Tony was because Nick Fury wanted to recruit him into the Superman Alliance. That is, the so-called Avengers. You'd better have something important to do. Peter said coldly. Is it not possible to have a drink with you if it's not important? You are my lifesaver. What do you do? Is there anything more important than meeting a super rich man? Psychologist. Peter said coldly. You can think of me as a psychologist. Tony took out a bag of cookies from somewhere and asked while eating. Aren't all psychologists kind-hearted big sisters? Can you really get into the patient's heart like this? Stark, you are more talkative than I thought. Peter complained in his heart and continued. It is obvious that you don't understand this profession. I don't need to get into their hearts. I just need to cure their diseases. But Mr. Stark, your body is full of palladium metal. This psychologist can't cure you. This sentence instantly depressed Tony's mood. At this moment, a large amount of palladium has appeared in his blood. These heavy metal elements are all over his body, flowing in his blood vessels, flowing into his heart, and then flowing out of his heart. If this problem is not solved, then Iron Man, who has just been on the hot search in various countries, will soon exit the stage of history in a ridiculous manner. Peter carelessly rubbed salt into Tony's wounds. He was originally a complicated person. He is friendly, helpful and loyal to his feelings. He is also the one who kills people like crazy, with vicious means and a lot of tricks. It's just that he chooses to face the people around him with a friendly attitude. But when facing others as Herman, it is inevitable that some darker potential will be exposed. Tony forced a smile and glanced at Natasha Romanoff behind him. Don't tell Pepper about this. He didn't know the true identity of Natasha Romanoff at this moment. He knew that this woman was not simple, but he didn't expect that she was from S.H.I.E.L.D. Got it, Mr. Stark. Natasha Romanoff responded, but her eyes were all on Herman. This cold man made her feel a desire to explore for the first time in a long time. She couldn't wait to know everything about this man. She looked at Peter, and Peter looked at her. I have to remind you, Miss Natasha Romanoff, don't look into the eyes of a psychologist, otherwise your secrets will be known. Since Peter decided to let Herman deal with this group of superheroes under the guise of Herman, he had to add more resumes to this disguise. Psychologists are a good choice. After all, Peter knows most of the plots of Marvel and DC. He knows the entire resume of each superhero. When he gets along with them in this identity, he feels a little more like a charlatan. Natasha Romanoff did not look away, still staring at Peter. It must be said that Black Widow at the moment is the most beautiful period, with collagen all over her face, very shiny, and a pretty good figure. You look at me like this, it makes me very embarrassed. Peter was a little embarrassed, but he was wearing the pseudonym of Herman, and Peter defined this identity as being sharp-tongued, cold, and ruthless. So he had to do something that fits this pseudonym's personality. Ms. Natasha Romanoff, it seems that you really want to have a psychotherapy. My consultation fee is very expensive, 1 million per hour. It can be seen that you are not a person who is willing to show your inner thoughts, and you are always vigilant even to your boss Tony. But this is normal, no subordinate will treat his boss as a human being, especially this boss as a playboy. Tony quickly interrupted Peter. Watch your words, don't let Pepper hear this, I'm no longer dating those models. Peter looked at Tony. Mr. Stark, I can not only see that there are heavy metals in your blood, but I can also see that your kidneys seem to have problems. I advise you to try not to indulge too much, after all, the reactor on your chest can't charge your kidneys. Quote. Tony retorted immediately. Shut up. What's your name? Forget it, you white-haired mafia, you are slandering me, my kidneys are fine. They are very good and healthy. When it comes to male dignity, Tony can no longer stand the man in front of him. His mouth is more poisonous than his own. Almost every word will make people angry. Herman Dante. Natasha Romanoff reminded on the side, and then the slender beauty could no longer bear it. She asked Peter. Mr. Herman, are you so confident in your analysis? Peter's face did not change. Many people have questioned me like this, but they all apologized for their behavior in the end. Ms. Natasha Romanoff, I don't mind continuing to do psychological analysis for you, but whether you can listen to it is another matter. Single quote. Natasha Romanoff put down the documents in her hand, and the expression on her face seemed to say, please speak. Peter chuckled and said, where were we talking just now? By the way, you are on guard against everyone. It's not difficult to judge this. Since I walked in, you have been holding your hands in front of your chest. Psychologically, this is a sign of defense. It can't be that your chest is too big. Thank you for the compliment. Natasha Romanoff's mouth corners slightly raised. Obviously, Peter's presumptuous words can't hurt her. Don't worry, I haven't finished speaking yet. Peter continued. A person's character originates from childhood. If a child is not suppressed in childhood, he will most likely be a confident person in the future. Similarly, Miss Natasha Romanoff, I can see that your childhood was not unfortunate, and your parents may have passed away a long time ago. Or, everything you had in your childhood was fake. Peter's words made Natasha Romanoff's face change. Yes, it's useful to be told. Natasha Romanoff did have an unfortunate childhood. She was born in a bear that had not yet disintegrated. Her parents had died long ago. Her adoptive father and mother were both agents. All her happiness was a lie. Later, she and her sister were all sent to a place called the Red House for agent training. Inhumane training. Ms. Natasha Romanoff, I don't think I need to do more analysis. Your micro-expressions are enough to make me sure that I am right. Natasha Romanoff smiled slightly. Mr. Herman, I didn't expect that under your cold appearance, you have a delicate heart. After saying that, she left directly. Before leaving, she passed by Peter and gently tapped his shoulder with her fingers. Tony couldn't help but feel jealous when he saw this scene. She has been working for me for 2 weeks and has always avoided me. And you, she just met you once and actually made a move. If I wasn't there, She might have asked you to write your phone number on her shoulder strap. Peter sat upright and continued to talk to Tony with Herman's attitude. I must remind you, Mr. Stark. There should be a minimum respect for people. Quote. And Natasha Romanoff made the right decision. After all, Miss Pepper is her boss now. In addition, if Miss Pepper knew that her boyfriend was thinking about other women. Stop it. Tony said quickly. I have changed my ways. Do you know how many women have wanted to sleep with me in the past few months? I ignored them all. Is it necessary to say this? Peter complained in his heart. Then he responded. You don't need to tell me about your private life. You might as well think about how to solve the problem of palladium poisoning. The content of palladium in your blood does not need to reach 100%. You will die if it is 70%. Quote. Tony was even more troubled. Do you think I don't want to? Am I the kind of person who knows I am going to die but does nothing? I have tried, but there is no way. There is no element in nature that can replace palladium. Peter sighed. You haven't tried them all. Your father left you an important fortune, but you haven't discovered it yet. Don't worry, you won't die. Someone doesn't want you to die. The people of S.H.I.E.L.D. have already set their sights on Iron Man and will definitely take action when necessary. S.H.I.E.L.D. has a plan to form a Superman alliance long ago, dating back to the time of Captain America. Unfortunately, Captain America was frozen for several years, and the plan was shelved. Now the plan has been restarted, and Iron Man is one of the main targets. Peter has reason to suspect that he and Gwen are also targets for recruitment. Maybe Tony asked him to come to Stark Industries this time. Nick Fury is behind the scenes to help. Peter stood up from the sofa and asked seriously. So, why did you call me here? Tony sighed and said. As you can see, I am going to die. The palladium in my body will soon make me dizzy and die of shock. But Stark Industries is the life's work of my father and me, especially the research I made. Tony pointed to the reactor on his chest. Many people want this, including my company. But I don't trust them. Tony Stark no longer trusts anyone after the backstab of the economic Obadiah. Especially after seeing some people use the weapons they made to kill civilians. He is very worried that Stark Industries will be used after his death. So, Mr. Gehrman, I want to protect Stark Industries. Although the reports about you outside are all negative, I know you are a good person and you have never done anything to civilians. You want me to be a bodyguard here? Peter said in a deep voice. You don't know me, let alone what kind of person I am. I can do whatever I want, and I can also not do what I don't want to do. I have no interest in protecting your industry. That's it for tonight. I don't want to waste time here. Quote. After saying that, Peter flew up directly, jumped down from the Stark building, and disappeared in the hustle and bustle of the city. At nightfall, Natasha Romanoff met Nick Fury in a hidden department in New York. The one-eyed bald black man was looking at a document. It contained information about German Dante. The document only had one piece of paper, or to be exact, only one line of words. German Dante. Information. Nick Fury sighed and put the document on the table. Natasha Romanoff on the side glanced at it. No need to look at it, there is no information, even this name, I suspect it is fake. You have been in contact with him, how do you feel? Nick Fury looked at Natasha Romanoff with his only remaining eye. Natasha Romanoff sighed. Very powerful, I can't see through him, he said he is a psychologist, she can accurately predict my childhood. Quote. In short, I think he meets the standards of the Superman League. Quote. Nick Fury touched his big bald head. We have to get in touch with him again. After all, Mr. Herman's reputation is not very good. In recent months, countless thieves and car thieves have died at his hands. A few months ago, he also destroyed the New York branch of Vought Company. The locomotive and the deep sea both died at his hands, and even Homelander couldn't beat him. But this is a good thing. I have long disliked Homelander and others. What superhero? It's better to call them super actors. Natasha Romanoff frowned when she heard the news. In her opinion, this is incredible. As an agent trained in the Red House, Natasha Romanoff can easily defeat 10 men in fighting. But compared with people with super abilities, even the locomotive is no match for her. After all, that guy was too fast. In the end, he died at the hands of Herman. That means Herman is faster than a locomotive. It's unbelievable. It has to be admitted that this powerful and mysterious man deeply aroused Natasha Romanoff's curiosity. Have you investigated him? Natasha Romanoff asked. Nick Fury looked a little helpless. We investigated, but it's useless. Our agents don't even know when he goes out or when he goes home. In short, it's difficult to investigate such a fast person. Suddenly, his voice paused, and he changed the subject and continued. But it's not that there is nothing to discover. After investigation, it was found that this cold and silent Mr. Herman had some friendship with a high school student. Perhaps, we can start from this aspect. Speaking, Nick Fury took out another file. This time it was Peter Parker's file. Natasha Romanoff took the file and glanced at it. He was the first in Midtown Science and Technology High School and won $1 million bonus from Stark Industries. Later, due to some things, Tony Stark's villa worth tens of millions in Queens was transferred to his name. According to gossip media, Tony Stark may have recognized Peter as his godson. There is a 2-inch photo of Peter Parker on it. Natasha Romanoff glanced at it and put the file on the table. This kid is handsome, but too thin. Nick Fury smiled. That's his old photo. Now he looks like a different person, and he has become stronger. I suspect that the Punisher, that is, Herman, gave him some potions. Otherwise, there is no reason. If I could have such a body by fitness, I would have become a muscular man long ago. Come on, you are just lazy. Natasha Romanoff replied speechlessly. So, what are you going to do? Nick Fury said, I will go see the kid myself tomorrow. As for Herman, I'll leave this to you. Me. Natasha Romanoff was stunned. Night, Queens. Peter's villa. Gwen went home, and he was alone tonight. I have to say that life with a girlfriend is really great. Especially when there is no shortage of money. But men also need their own time alone. Peter prepared a glass of red wine, 2 sausages, and a steak. He originally wanted to make some Chinese food, but it was too troublesome. He turned on the TV, leaned on the sofa, and was about to enjoy the food. Suddenly he was refreshed. A few kilometers away from the villa, there are 10 small villas. That was the residence that Kingpin had prepared for him before. Near the villa, Peter arranged a lot of night crows. They monitored everything around them almost without blind spots. From Night Crow's perspective, a beautiful girl with a slim figure, brown hair, and tights appeared near the villa. You ruined my whole night. Can't we talk about it tomorrow? Peter complained. He quickly left the house and appeared a few kilometers away with German Dante's face on his face. Fortunately, he was very fast and entered the villa in almost a breath. Adjusting his posture, leaning on the sofa, turning on the TV, which was playing a meaningless soap opera. At this moment, there was a knock on the door. Ms. Natasha Romanoff, don't you know that the night is a personal time? Hearing German's voice in the house, Natasha Romanoff was startled. How did he know I was here? Could it be that he installed a surveillance camera nearby? Natasha Romanoff pushed the door open and saw German Dante leaning on the sofa with his back to her. Sorry, I just want you to give me some psychological counseling. You don't have any psychological problems. Peter turned around, glanced at Natasha Romanoff, motioned her to sit down, and then walked to the wine cabinet to take out a bottle of red wine. I have to say that Jin Bing is still very considerate. He said the most cruel words, but his body did the most cowardly things. Not only did he prepare a house for Peter, but even the things inside were all available. The red wine in the wine cabinet is also very valuable. I said, my consultation fee is very expensive, I wonder if you can accept 1 million hours a day. Natasha Romanoff pursed her lips. I can pay with other things. Thanks for watching.